Okay, so this review is meant for my Algebra 2 students traveling from CVCC. You have a quiz Thursday over 6.2, 6.4, and 6.5, and this review is meant to help you prepare. Alright, so we're going to start with a problem here on describing end behavior. Alright, so there are two rules you need to remember, and we'll talk about them as we do the problems. First thing, though, is you need to make sure that your function is in standard form. That is in descending powers of x. So we must look at our terms. The highest power is negative 2x to the fifth power. Then I see a fourth power, plus x to the fourth. Do I see a cubed? No, I see a squared, plus 3x squared. I see an x, plus 5x, and then there is no constant, so we're finished. Now we look at the leading coefficient. That's the number, the very first number. It's a negative 2. So your first rule is, if the leading coefficient is positive, right side up. It's negative, so my right side is down. So as x approaches positive infinity, as it goes to the right, your function is going to go down. Okay. And then we look at the degree. The degree is 5. 5 is odd. Your rule is if the degree is even, both sides match. Well, the degree is odd, so they do not match. So the left side goes up as x approaches negative infinity. F of x approaches positive infinity. Okay? And there's the end behavior for this function. Okay, let's do the second one. Again, let's put it in standard form, if it's not already. F of x equals highest power is squared, 2x squared. Next is the x, plus 7x, then minus 5. We look at the leading coefficient. It's a positive 2. If the leading coefficient is positive, right side is up. As x approaches positive infinity, f of x also approaches positive infinity. Now we look at the degree. The degree is also 2. Even. If the degree is even, both sides are the same. So we're going up as well on the left. So as x approaches negative infinity, your function approaches positive infinity. It keeps going up. And there we go. So that's end behavior. All right. Two rules. Next question. Next question says, let's find all the real number solutions. And here's our problem. X to the fourth plus 6x cubed equals 9x squared plus 54. Well, remember the rule. It must equal 0. So we need to move the 9x squared and the 54x by subtracting them because they're positive. And what we'll get is in standard form, x to the fourth plus 6x cubed minus 9x squared minus 54x equals 0. And I know that you see the four terms, but wait. There's a common factor. There is something in all four terms, and that's an x. Pull that guy out. So when you pull it out, all the powers of x decrease by 1. Okay? So if you want to, you can treat this x separately and say, okay, x equals 0, and I'm done. Now let's look at this guy. Four terms factored by grouping. Okay. The first two have an x squared. That leaves me with x plus 6. Bring down that sign. The next two you can pull a 9 out of. X, and it changes that 54 to a positive 6. We take the x plus 6, which is common to both, take it out, and we're left with x squared minus 9. Now we have a difference of perfect squares, x squared minus 3 squared. So we have x plus 6. Now what you could do is you could do this. You could say, okay, well, that means x plus 6 equals 0, so x equals negative 6. You can do them along the way. And this is going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. So if I slide over here, well, that means that x plus 3 equals 0. So if I subtract 3, I get negative 3. And that means that x minus 3 equals 0. And if I add 3, if I add 3 to both sides, I get positive 3. And we have a fourth degree polynomial, meaning that there's a possible 4 answers, and we got them all. All real answers. Remember, if you get a negative square root, they're imaginary. Don't worry about them. Okay. All right. So that was the first real number solution problem. Now we have a second one. 16x to the 5th equals 2x squared. So let's remember our rule has to equal 0. So let's move the 2x squared by subtracting it on both sides. So we'll get in standard form 16x to the 5th minus 2x squared equals 0. I see a couple common things. Number 1, I see a 2. Number 2, I see an x squared. So that leaves me with 8x to the 3rd minus, and I pulled the whole thing out, so that's a minus 1. Now, what I can do is I can break this apart. This 2 doesn't mean anything. The x squared equals 0. If x squared equals 0, x has to be 0. You can take the square root if you want to, but you should know that 0 squared is 0. There's one answer. Now here, let's bring this down here. This looks familiar. 8 is 2 cubed, x is x cubed, that's 2x cubed. 1 is 1 cubed, this is a difference of perfect cubes. We have 2x minus 1, and then we have 2x squared, which is 2 squared 4, x squared, plus opposite sign, the product. 2x times 1 is 2x, always positive, the second thing squared. 1 squared is 1. So now we have 2x minus 1 equals 0, add 1, divide by 2. There's our second real solution. This one right here, it's a quadratic. Let me find the discriminant first. B squared minus 4 times A times C. That's 4 minus 16, which is negative 12. Uh-oh, I can stop. Because that's imaginary, right? Negative discriminant, imaginary solutions here. So we have two answers, 0 and 1/2. Next problem. We need to find the dimensions of this rectangular prism. Its dimensions right now are x minus 2, x and x minus 2. The volume is 16 feet cubed. All right, so how do we do this problem? Well, first, let's remember. That volume is length times width times height. So I think we need to get the equation for the volume by taking x times x minus 2 times x minus 2 and multiplying that out. Well, let's start with the FOIL. X squared minus 2x plus 4. Combine your middle terms. X squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, and that's what the FOIL comes out to be. But then you got this x in front, which needs to be distributed. So distribute it. X cubed minus 4x squared plus 4x. And that is what your volume equals. So you get that equation. Now, this equation needs to be set equal to the volume that you have. So we take this, and we say, okay, x cubed minus 4x squared plus 4x equals the volume of 16. And we need to subtract 16 because you can't look to factor until one side is 0. So we get x cubed minus 4x squared plus 4x minus 16 equals 0. And now this is a factor by grouping problem. 2, 2. I pull out an x squared, x minus 4. Bring down the positive symbol, I pull out a 4, x minus 4. The x minus 4 is repeated, so we bring that out in front and cross them off, and we're left with an x squared plus 4. If x minus 4 equals 0, that means x has to be 4 here. That could be one answer. This one is not a difference, so we can't do the perfect squares. So we'll do x squared plus 4 equals 0. Let's subtract 4, and let's take the square root. Uh-oh, we have the square root of a negative number. Those solutions right there are going to be imaginary. So here is your only x value. So we must answer the problem now. What are the dimensions? Well, it's going to be in feet, because it's feet cubed, and we plug 4 back in. 4 minus 2 is 2 feet by x, which is 4 feet, by x minus 2, which is 2 feet. And there's our dimensions for this rectangular prism. Remember, 0 on one side. Have to get 0 before you can factor. Okay, next, we are going to approach this division problem 2 ways. We're going to do it synthetic division, and we're going to do it long division. Now, remember that because it's in the form of x minus k, we can use synthetic division. When you're dividing by x minus k, you can use synthetic division. If it had an x squared, long division is the only way to go. Now, we cannot forget this either. When you're dividing, all the powers of x must be there. This guy is missing x squared, so fill it in. Okay? So let's first use synthetic division. Okay. So remember, with synthetic division, we list our coefficients. 1, negative 2. I'm sorry. 1 for the x cubed, 0 for the x squared, negative 2 for x, and 12. We draw our L, And now, we don't put the factor, we put what the 0 would be, the opposite, negative 3 out in front. And now, you bring the 1 down, and you multiply by negative 3 across, and you add down. Multiply by negative 3, add down. Multiply by negative 3, add down. So this is my final answer. Remainder, constant, x squared. X squared minus 3x plus 7 minus 9 over what I divided by, x plus 3. That's synthetic division. Now let's approach this problem using long division as well. Alright, so I'm going to put it right down here, small long division. Let me sneak down just a bit. Okay, I'm dividing by x plus 3, so that's going to go on the outside, x plus 3. And on the inside, it's going to go x cubed plus 0x squared minus 2x plus 12. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's right. So now, it's always ask yourself, how do I get this to become that? What do I multiply by? Well, to get x to become to get x to become x cubed, you must multiply by x squared. And then you distribute that twice to the x and the 3. X cubed plus 3x squared. Let me scroll down so that we can see what we're doing. Okay? And you draw your line and you change your signs because you're subtracting. The x cubes cancel. 0 minus 3 is negative 3x squared. I bring down the negative 2x. How do I make x become negative 3x squared? I need to multiply by a negative 3x, and I do it once, twice. Negative 3x squared minus 9x. I draw the line, and I change my signs. The 3x's go away, 3x squareds go away, and minus 2 plus 9 is positive 7x. And I bring the 12 down. How do I make x become 7x? I multiply by a positive 7. And again, it's 2 distributions to give me 7x plus 21. Draw my line, and I change my signs. The 7x go away. 12 minus 21 is negative 9. So my answer is going to be x squared minus 3x plus 7. This part, the quotients. Since I got a single number, minus 9 over what I divided by, x plus 3. And notice if you look, you get the same answer using synthetic division or using long division. Doesn't matter. But remember, synthetic division is only limited to x minus k divisors, what you're dividing by, x minus k. Okay, the next problem here, okay, just disregard this, this writing over here. We need to use the 0 they give us to find all the zeros. So here's the function f of x equals x cubed minus 14x squared plus 47x minus 18, and the x that they give us, the 0 that they give us, is 9. This number right here. So what we do is first, standard form, all powers of x, yes. Synthetic division. I put my 9 out here. Do not change that sign. That is the x value. That's not the factor, it's the x value. And we do the synthetic division. Bring down the 1 and multiply by 9. Negative 5, multiply by 9. 2, multiply by 9. 0. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a remainder of 0. So now I have x squared minus 5x plus 2. I still need to find the zeros that go with this, so I'm going to find the discriminant to see if it factors or not. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. And I get 25 minus 8. 17. 17 is not a perfect square, so it does not factor, so I must use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of your discriminant all over 2a. And I would like decimal answers. So what do I get when I do the plus? What do I do when I get the minus? Well, don't forget to use the parentheses. Remember, if you're doing it all at once, you better put parentheses around this entire numerator. 5 plus. So I get rounded to 3 decimal places, 4.562. And if I use the minus, 0.438. And there's the other two zeros. So if you were to graph them, these would be also your x-intercepts, where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, remember, synthetic division, you want to get it down to a quadratic. When you get it to a quadratic, you have methods of solving, factoring, and the quadratic formula. Okay, last problem I have for us here. This is a rectangular prism. I have the equation of its volume given, and I have 2 of the 3 sides. Your job is to find what that third dimension is. Find what the question mark is. So remember how we handle this problem. We take the 2 we know and multiply them. So when I FOIL, I'll get 2x squared plus 1x minus 8x minus 4. Combine your middle terms, 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. This is the product of the 2 dimensions you know. So now we take this and we divide it into our volume. 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 into 2x cubed minus 11x squared plus 10x plus 8. Okay? So we're going to see how many times it goes into that. The answer is going to be our last dimension. Well, we ask ourselves, how do I make 2x squared become 2x cubed? That's the question. Well, it already has a 2. I just need another x. So I need to multiply by x. 1, 2, 3 terms affected. 1, 2, 3 terms is where it goes. And I do 1, 2, 3 distributions. 2x cubed minus 7x squared minus 4x. I draw my line and I change all of the signs. So my 2x cubes cancel. Negative 11 plus 7 is negative 4x squared. 10 plus 4 is 14x, and I bring down the 8. So now it's 2x squared to become negative 4x squared. That's a negative 2. 1, 2, 3 times the negative 2. Negative 4x squared plus 14x plus 8. I draw my line, I change my signs, and lo and behold, cancel, 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 your remainder is 0. And that's what you should expect, because these three numbers multiply to get that volume equation, so they should each be a factor of that volume equation, which means the remainder is 0. So your missing dimension is x minus 2. I hope that this video helps. There are also some homework overflow that I have on the website from the ones we could not go over in class today. Alright, happy studying. We'll see you tomorrow.